I sing the mighty power of God that made the mountains rise, that spread the flowing seas abroad, and built the lofty skies. I sing the wisdom that ordained the sun to rule the day, the Most High's full that God's command, and all the stars obey. I sing the goodness of the God that filled the earth with food. God formed the creatures with the word, and then pronounced them good. Lord, how thy wonders are displayed wherever I turn my eyes. If I survey the ground I tread, or gaze upon the skies, there's not a plant or flower below, but makes thy glories known. And clouds arise and tempests blow by order from thy throne. What that burdens life from thee is ever in thy care, and everywhere that we can be, thou art present there.
Sisters and brothers, welcome yet again to this sacred space. For surely the Spirit of the Lord is here. And if the Spirit of the Lord is here, then we are truly all together. The Spirit this week, as we are still in the season of Epiphany, we are in the 3rd chapter of Jonah, verses 1 through 5 and 10. So at this time, sisters and brothers, let us open ourselves to what the Spirit is saying to the church, what the Spirit is saying to us. The word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, saying, "Get up, go to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim to it the message that I tell you." So Jonah set out and went to Nineveh, according to the word of the Lord. And now Nineveh was an exceedingly large city, a 3 days' walk across. Jonah began to go into the city, going a day's walk. And he cried out, 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overthrown." And the people of Nineveh believed God. They proclaimed a fast, and everyone, great and small, put on sackcloth. When God saw what they did, how they turned from their evil ways, God changed God's mind about the calamity that God had said God would bring upon them. And God did not do it. This, my sisters and brothers, is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. A mother is faced with a message she knows has God wrapped all around it, but a message she or any mother would rather never have to give. It is the kind of message that would have a mother diving into the ocean and wanting to be swallowed by a big fish, having that sounding more enticing than having to go in front of people and give them this message. A message about her daughter, who was murdered just a few days before. You see, the mother's daughter was present in 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia, as many gathered in support or in opposition to statues being removed. Along with at least 19 others who were injured, this young woman was run over by a person who saw her merely as a symbol, as part of the other side, and extinguished her life as if it was all she was worth knowing about. The mother, swirling with anger and sadness much too deep for words, would not focus her complete attention on the people, national leaders, and otherwise who disappointed her. She did not demonize and declare divine judgment upon the man and the group he represented. This mother looked right square into the television cameras with heavy eyes, exposing a heavy heart, and asked that both sides of the issue need to sit down at the table and actively stay there. For this mother, who had her baby ripped from this time and space, the message was clear as she declared, "I want people to start talking and listening to one another." For this mother, equality is when you don't see each other as a label. We can all learn something from a mother's lesson. Today's passage puts us at the climax of our fish-belly-dwelling buddy Jonah and God's message for the people. God, in this scene, has come a second time to remind Jonah of what it is he is to do, to proclaim a message to the great city that had a 3-day walk just to get across it. This could easily be a great nation. Jonah went on a ship to avoid the land he was being called to. He almost brings down a boat full of people, survives a deep water excursion within the belly of a fish, which would have most submarine folks scratching their heads before finally arriving at the ultimate truth. You can't outrun God. And also, what happens when Jonah or we share our plans with God? God laughs. Truly, how could we not see the humor in the entire book of Jonah with this combination of life-saving fish, misplaced psalms, and repentant cows? We could learn a lot from a mother's lesson. This thought turns us not only to the message Jonah is to give to the great city of Nineveh, but to us, you and I, as readers of the Bible. How we read this passage helps us see ourselves as either literal readers or a people open-minded to the blatant Hebrew humor. For example, Hebrew humor revolves around the number 3. This is the second time God reminds Jonah of his messenger duties. And the third will come after, when God burns the tree Jonah is seeking rest under, as Jonah confronts God for being merciful to the people whom Jonah proclaimed a most certain and divine destruction. Jonah could learn something from a mother's lesson. While Jonah mixes his own resentment and frustration at being called into a place he did not want to be in, he misses the fullness of God's message to the people of Nineveh. A message of justice, yes, but justice inescapably bound by love and to love. As the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated about power and love and justice, King said, "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without justice or power is sentimental and anemic." Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. We learn of God in this passage. The words of condemnation do not and will not lead to divine action. The people of Nineveh listened and acted. Both great and small, rich and poor, government leader and post office worker, old and young, political winners and perceived political losers, all took on the barrenness of a sackcloth. They stripped themselves of any worldly label that could create a distinction between their worth and others' worth. And God gave God's final answer. Jonah's passage speaks of God's final answer for the Ninevites, or for those who act to make themselves small and God big. God's final answer is salvation. In today's America, we have a clear choice to make. As overwhelming thoughts and feelings too deep for words consume us these days, will we be guided by those with condemnation alone on their lips? As we continue in our daily walks in this great nation, will we continue to bear upon ourselves and splatter upon others the labels that separate us from others and others from us? Or will we see the raw, bare, and beautiful humanity of one another? I hope so. We have a chance, truly. We always have a chance to start fresh, to start anew. In our personal lives, professional lives, or political lives, will we join Jonah and be led to share a divine message that screams, I don't want to be here. I never wanted to be among this reality? Or will we open ourselves to a God who is just in God's love, loving in God's justice for all people? Jesus followers, or non-believers, such as the people of Nineveh. If a mother, the most sacred bearer of human life, can ask the people who represented the hatred which killed her 32-year-old baby girl, if this mother can ask them to join their opposition at the table for an honest discussion, for true listening by all present, then why can't we? Amen.